The living room, where the family meets to discuss issues, any issue which may be bothering one of the family members. That's what we do each and every Tuesday from 7 to 8 p.m. on WAC 90.1 FM with Ricardo Mitchell and DJ Aaron 868. We have casual conversations on serious topics, from sports to culture, mental health to economics, relationships to life lessons. Join us each and every Tuesday from 7 to 8 p.m. on WAC 90.1 FM. The Living Room, casual conversations on serious topics.
It is currently a couple of minutes after 6 p.m. here in Trinidad and Tobago. I don't know what time it is where you are, but I'm glad to know you're locked on to the true nation station, WACK 90.1 FM, where we are
culture crazy.
Let's kick it off first and foremost, as we always do. Must give thanks and praises to the Almighty for granting us the gift of life and seeing another day. No matter what time of day it is, you must always
give thanks.
Secondly, we must say thank you to those that went before us, not just the ancestors, but also to Tony Prescott, where the P this week stands for
psychology. Yes, the P silent, but a there.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
And the reason why I could guess you mentioned psychology as the P is because on Sunday, the 10th of October, we celebrated World Mental Health Day.
Correct is right.
And there's just one thing I want to say before we go any further. Emotional avoidance is not a healthy coping mechanism. Allow yourself to feel. We talked about this last week.
Agree.
Right? We have a real action-packed show, so hang your hat.
Yeah, I just want to hang my hat on the people who have any conversations. Last week, our resident of the living room, Brendan James, he was a budget analyst on another bandwidth, and it was very well received. He was part of a discussion with the Minister of Trade and Industry, if I'm not mistaken.
That's Paula Gopi-Schoon, yeah.
Yeah, and also to Gail Figaro, who's also been visiting the living room, and a member of someone who was recently featured on our podcast. She posted something on LinkedIn that went viral and was invited to speak in the Wonder Woman in Tech, and was featured in a conversation with women in Australia and Jamaica and so on and so forth. So what I'm saying is just, to the people who have any conversations, who trying to put that positive energy out there, that making a difference. I just want to hang my hat to those people. Glad to call you peers. And how are you looking to wipe your foot this week?
Stop using styrofoam. Stop it.
Good.
Yeah. If they didn't hear me, yeah.
Yeah, well, again, the P was for psychology this week because of World Mental Health Day. And this is Mental Health Month. So what we've been doing is observing mental health with the conversations and the guests. And we're doing it a little differently. Last week we had therapy hesitancy.
Right.
With Ayana Bertrand-Charles, and this week we're going to talk a little bit about some sports psychology and the mental health of the athlete with the one and only Radanfah Abu Bakr, Trinidad and Tobago senior international player with 38 appearances. He's had an illustrious playing career in leagues all across Europe and Asia, including the UK, Belgium, Denmark, Kazakhstan, Lithuania, Estonia, Indonesia, India, amongst others. He has a bachelor's in business management from Kingston University in London. He has coaching qualifications with the TTFA and KNVB. He has a C license currently, and he's currently a player coach with Shore Sports FC in the UPSL in Maryland, and he's working on acquiring his UEFA badges soon. So, we have a guy who didn't just play, but is looking at steering the future of sport, and hopefully it'll it'll permeate into other arenas as well. So one time, no crime.
What I'm going to say, what we would like to do is allow him to permeate from the mezzanine. See what I did there?
On this mezzanine, man.
Yeah. Let him know. Right, so after a professional intro like that, now we had to lighten it a little bit because, we focus on casual conversations on serious topics, right? So as casual as it is, all 5'5" of me was asked to mark 6'6" and I stick into the height to make it sound. Yeah, it's how to make the story sound better now. Okay, if you say 6'4", it don't have the same kind of oomph to it. Right. So all 6'6" of our guests, Radanfah. I could call it Radanfah.
Absolutely, especially if you pronounce it correctly, like you just did.
Right. All 6'6" of Radanfah on a corner in a fet match. That was the most wicked thing anybody ever do to me on a football field.
Wait, what he do to you, or you having to mark him?
Me having to mark him.
Oh, okay. You know,
what was the result? How did that turn out?
The corner didn't even reach in the 18-yard box.
Yes, see, well, objective achieved. The goal didn't go in. You did your defensive job, and yeah, everybody's still alive.
I will accept that level of flattery.
Right.
you gonna get
5 is more than enough size to make a nuisance of yourself and stop the goal from scoring, which eventually you did.
I have been saying that for years, that Aaron makes a nuisance of himself. Aaron knows how to make a nuisance of himself.
In a football context.
Thank you very much.
Hey, listen, the man skilled in a multidisciplinary way. I taken that. So 5'5", hear this now. As I call it 5'5" though. No?
Wow.
That wasn't your jersey number?
No.
All right. My bad. So if we could talk to number 6 for a minute here, right? There's this exoticism that we touch on in terms of your name, right? I'm pretty certain that based on the number of countries that you've been to, the number of places that you've played football, the people that you've met, right? This exoticism would have impacted many a culture. You know, what is it like for you leaving Trinidad and Tobago and going to a place where very few people look like you or sound like you or even have such a I don't want to say dramatic, but such a musical name. It have a flow to it now. Sorry, my fanboy showing.
It's certainly very unique. First of all, I want to express how grateful I am and how fortunate I think I am to have been able to travel all over the world and play and experience different cultures and peoples and foods and climatic conditions and football as well. It has enriched me so much, not just personally but professionally. As we alluded to before, 6'5", 6'6", I'm hard to miss, So you always get the odds there. It doesn't matter where you are. And some of the more, far-flung reaches of the earth that I've been, it's definitely, something different for people to see. But it's never been, anything discriminatory or adverse or hateful or anything. It's generally been intrigue, and a lot of people are just curious. When they ask you where you're from and you say Trinidad and they say, what, Canada? And you say Trinidad and they say Canada? And Trinidad. And then they say, where is that, in Africa, So yeah, that's often the response you get. But when you break it down, it's kind of cool to just, share where you're from and your journey there, and obviously the next question is, so what are you doing here, in the middle of Eastern Europe, But yeah, it's always been enjoyable to taste that and to share where I'm from and a bit of my culture and my ways with other people as well.
Yeah, Aaron, that reminds me of a cruise you took several years back, if I'm not mistaken. You end up in Mexico and all kind of thing. Yeah. I remember you come back with a couple more Facebook friends than you left. So apparently
it's always like a lot of curiosity, man, when you travel and especially places that haven't seen many foreigners and certainly not many like me. So for example, in Kazakhstan, that's former Russia. Huge country, but kind of closed off to the world for some time, and you feel like you kind of go back in time. That's the land of Borat, by the way. And everything you see in that movie isn't quite exactly what happens there, believe it or not. They're very warm and proud people, you know.
Wow.
So it was a really interesting experience there. But they've never seen people, and people of color as well. I went there along with a guy from Guyana, one from Senegal, Gambia, and El Salvador. The Senegalese and the Gambian guys were as dark as this hat, you know, and that's not what you'll normally see there. And you know, the people are just so intrigued by it. And there was an old lady once. She just walked up to one of the guys and pinched his face, you know, and she's like, Klashivi, she's like, that's beautiful, you know. And it's that kind of intrigue and curiosity, really, more than anything else. You know, you go to the grocery and they kind of follow you around and look through the lanes as you're walking through the lanes, almost to see if like you're human or something, you know. And then when one of them gets the courage to kind of ask you for a picture, you're going to be standing there with your grocery bags in your hand for like 20 minutes because everybody's coming to try to take a picture with you. And it's kind of crazy, but yeah, those are the kind of things you kind of come across out there sometimes.
I want to ask a strange question as you brought that up. In terms of the fanboy moments, you care to highlight, not you, Ricardo.
Sorry.
What?
Right, that's sorry.
You care to highlight one of the strangest you would have come across in your playing career thus far?
A fanboy moment. I'm generally kind of camera shy. I try to avoid that kind of stuff mostly, but yeah, those incidents in like Kazakhstan for sure, you know, where people sort of follow you around and almost like peeking behind shelves and stuff, looking at you in the grocery and catching you unawares and taking pictures of you while you're not looking and that kind of thing. Those things are kind of freak you out sometimes, but it's just pure intrigue by them, you know, and curiosity, because you know that would have been probably 7-8 years ago. You know, that's before the whole social media and, you know, almost the internet exploded. So they would not have been privy to, you know, folks that look like me, kind of thing, you know.
Okay.
So yeah, those incidents were interesting to say the least.
And that actually is a pretty good way to get into the topic at hand, because I know you're a very reserved person, right?
Yeah.
At least off the field. And in terms of your privacy and that type of thing, what is it like having to deal with some of these liberties people take with you as a public figure and as an athlete representing the country or the club that you're with? You know, what are some of the challenges you feel just because these people in your space?
Well, it does come with the territory. I have never been someone, you know, very outward, even with, again, the proliferation of social media and stuff. I still keep it, you know, fairly private. And I think that's important for me just generally, because I think I show introverted kind of tendencies. So that's sort of just my personality. But it does come with the territory. You're a public figure, you know, a footballer is technically an entertainer. You know, your canvas, your stage is of course the football pitch, and you are there for people to see. You're not hiding away in an office. You're not in a surgeon's room or anything. You are there for people to see. So you know that's part of your job, and I've embraced it over time rather reluctantly. To be, you know, a little more open and social, and I actually encourage other people because I understand the importance of it and engaging fans and that kind of thing. I was on trial at the MLS team once, and that was part of the training as well. They actually suggested that you make a fan page, like a fan Facebook page or whatever it was at that time, separate and apart from your personal page with your family and not real friends, but yeah, family and friends. And then one for like fans, you know, to engage them differently to obviously how you would post or interact with your family and actual friends and people you really speak to. But yeah, it is part of being an athlete now. It is invasive at times. And like you say, people do take liberties. People think they know you because they follow you or they see you on TV. But as my friend recently said to me, and it kind of stuck with me, it's not about who you know, it's about who know you, you know? So yes, you see me on TV, and yes, maybe you follow every single step of my career, and you know every stat that I've ever produced or whatever. But we're not necessarily friends now, you know. And you know, some fans I think kind of take it, you know, a step too far, and assuming they know, you know, the athletes that they follow and adore and that kind of thing, and take certain liberties that probably shouldn't. But it's kind of the world we live in, and that's the access social media kind of gives to people, especially obviously people in the spotlight, athletes. So yeah, it's something that takes careful management, and it's important to engage with fans and stuff, but there are limits and there are boundaries that you need to set for yourself personally, knowing yourself and professionally, of course.
Yeah, because for the year already, we've seen Simone Biles withdraw from Olympic participation. We've seen Naomi Osaka withdraw from tournaments. Last season, we were seeing Kyrie Irving not presenting himself for games for various reasons, and well, this season we're seeing him not presenting himself for different reasons. But the thing is, I think we underestimate how important it is for a high performance athlete to manage the mental space and the personal space, because the first thing we'll do is come down on you if you have a bad performance, but we're not respecting what it takes for you to perform from a healthy space.
Yeah, not just physically, of course, as you say, you know, mentally. The Naomi Osaka incident really resonated with me when, you know, she had reservations about being dragged in front of a camera after just losing a game. You know, it's almost like you're a circus, you know, performer, and yeah, this is part of the act, this is part of the show. You know, you don't actually really care how I feel about, you know, whatever performance I just had, and you know, but and that's kind of contractually, you're contractually obliged to do that in some cases. You know, they drag you in front of the camera when you've just lost, when you've given everything on the pitch or on the court or whatever, and you know, it's almost like they don't care, and it's almost as they make a spectacle out of you, and that's part of the show. You know, seeing how you react, and if you break down in tears, or if you play it off like, you know, I'll just bounce back from this, and you know, that's really tough to deal with in the public arena, you know. Obviously from experience, when you have a bad game, obviously that's not a good feeling. And as much bravado as some people want to display to others, it does hurt, especially as a professional, as somebody who puts everything into it, in training and into the games and stuff. When you don't get desired results, you know, it is painful and it is hurtful. And to have that played out, you know, on a camera as entertainment as well, it's tough, it's difficult to deal with. And yeah, that bit with her really resonated with me for sure.
Like, as you brought those examples to the fore there, Ricardo, there's something I always remember. Inside, as a Manchester United fan, I smiled. Right? I think that was back in 2012, 13 or 13, 14 when Liverpool were on the cusp of winning the Premier League for the first time. And they drew the game at Crystal Palace. And it left Luis Suarez in tears after the game. And every camera was up in his face. And the commentators will look at the emotion. Not taking into consideration what would have brought him to that. And like they just took on that image. Even to this day, when they show the highlights of that game, they still show him crying.
Yeah. And it's almost like you ignore the human aspect of it now. Like that's a real person with real emotion. This is not just entertainment now. You know, I feel like, you know, we ignore that so often and almost feel like that should be part of the show. And that's torture for an athlete sometimes, you know. Because you would see that played over and over again if you have a TV in your house, you're gonna see that over and over again, and to relive, you know, a difficult moment over and over, that's torture, man.
And I have it on YouTube all the time.
It's on YouTube, coming up in your Twitter feed, and then even a lot of sports broadcasting now is not even about broadcasting the event. In our football group I'm in, I keep explaining to these fellas that the game is 90 minutes. but the stories go on for decades. The narrative is what sells, the replay sells, the headline sells. You may miss half of the game because you engage in the subplots. The thing is, the narrative is what a lot of people don't even remember scores or actual events. They remember things that happened with a player.
Yeah.
And that has to be difficult to deal with because you know what? You would have moved on. You would have put the game behind you or the experience behind you. Maybe you may have seen you might have had a therapist or you might have had a sports coach or whatever. You have to navigate to your next performance. And then you'll be minding a business and somebody will go on your wall or comment on an article where they're reporting on the game or
tweet.
Make a meme out of you and that type of thing is.
Boy. Well, yeah, in Trinidad, really land of memes right now. So.
Discipline, tolerance, and production of memes.
Yeah, you mentioned you would go through a sports psychologist or something, but I played for almost a decade and a half, and no team yet has had that, except my early experience with QRC. They had a guy who was an old boy, and he used to come in and speak to us sometimes. That's the only team I've ever been on that has had a psychologist, and I think that's a tragedy because so much of the game is mental, and so much of what you go through is emotional. And yes, you have physiotherapists to help you to fix your toe or your ankle if it's sprained or whatever, but nobody to help you sort out, the emotional scars of defeat or even dealing with success, when you do well and you get a lot of adoration and that kind of thing, and keeping your head on your shoulders. And I think that's again another thing that's often overlooked, and I'm definitely an advocate for that kind of thing. And I've suggested it over and over again to a lot of teams that I've been part of, but it's always down the pecking order of priorities, and it's almost like not even considered. It's almost like not even an extra, like it's not necessary, and that's again, that's a real tragedy.
I have a question I want to ask, but I'm afraid to ask it.
Not at all. You go right ahead, man.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
So within the construct of the TTFA and the national team, we don't have a sports psychologist?
None that I have had access to. They might have one, I think, within the sport company.
Yeah.
They have those things, but as far as the TTFA reaching out to them to provide the footballers with those services, I have not experienced it in my 10 or so years with the national team at any level, youth team, senior team, anything. We've got nutritionists, we've got strength and conditioning people, we've got, obviously physiotherapists, etc. Now they have data analysis people, and still nothing for your mental state. Yeah.
Point noted. I will ask some questions.
You should. I have been before, and fallen on deaf ears, man.
Now, as I ask that to you now, as a coach, do you have a strategy or a culture that you are trying to create?
Well, first let's clear up. I'm not a coach just yet anyway. I am currently in the US. I've taken up an opportunity to be a sort of player/coach at a UPSL team in Maryland. And that's, with the view of attaining my coaching certifications in the future. Okay. So I'm accruing a bit of experience. I'm very much, and I emphasize, I'm very much still an active professional player. But in lieu of the league that's dormant because of all the COVID restrictions at home, a guy extended an invitation for me to be part of his project. And I get a chance to continue to play here because obviously I do play. And, I'm under a bit of his tutelage and getting experience with coaching on my own. As I say, as I look to segue into that when my playing career is over, which it is not, not just yet.
So I'm a poke the bear kind of guy. So
yeah,
here what's going on. I think it would be hard to forget the magnificent performance of the Trinidad and Tobago football team the magnificent defensive performance in that 0-0 game. That 0-0.
Well,
That
without
0-0.
mentioning it, I assume you're talking about the recent Gold Cup against Mexico.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
For proper football aficionados, they get what it takes, the discipline that it takes, the concentration that it takes, the energy that it takes to play that style of football.
What are you talking about?
I know I should not say aficionado, you know. I mean, real fans and followers now, you know, Aaron.
Thank you.
Yeah, apologies. I forget it's late, you know, you haven't had your quota for the day. So it's cool. But the premise is that we know it's difficult to perform like that for that length of time under those conditions. Right? How does it feel after such a masterclass performance to come back and hear people talking about, wait, now he's still playing? Or where they get them fellas from? I mean, you wouldn't go buy a mechanic. You wouldn't go buy a mechanic, right? And fire down the mechanic for still being open.
Right.
You know, I mean, why do we do that? And how does that feel?
Once he's able to perform and fix your car, of course.
Right.
Which I think, which I think I humbly proved with the help of everyone else, of course, in that particular game. Even the selection of myself was questioned leading up to the tournament as well. Some of it justified, maybe, but there were questions around my selection because I hadn't played competitively since the initial lockdown, so that's a year plus. I obviously was still training and that kind of thing, but I wasn't contracted to a team. There was no football in Trinidad, so no professional football, no competitive football. So you resign to just training, and that's not comparable with competitive play. But I did all that I can, mentally, physically. I'm an experienced boy. I've been around, so I prepared as best as I can, you know, for an opportunity like that. So when it came, I was able to hold my own. 8 out of the 11 guys, I believe, that started that game are local guys. Those are guys similar to me who haven't played in a year and a half competitively, a year and a bit. And you know, that speaks to the talent we have, first of all, to the confidence the coach showed in us for that particular game, and you know, the aptitude and everything that went into that game. So kudos to everybody for that. So to have people now turn around and almost ridicule you or question why you was there in the first place, you know, that's a little disheartening. But like I was telling to someone, that's not my concern. That's really not my business. I am a professional footballer. I'm paid to play and to perform. That's it. I don't have to necessarily prove anything to some keyboard warrior or some Instagram or internet troll. My focus is on giving the best performance each and every time I go out there. And that's the only thing I'm in control of. I'm not in control of anything else. People are going to criticize you either way. So people criticize Messi, for goodness sake. So, you know, who's me, you know? So I see your point. And we ain't going to name any names. But yeah. So that's my role, to focus on what I am in control of. And that's my performance, my effort, my concentration when I play. You know, preparing well, so when the opportunity arises, that, you know, I'm able to execute, and I think I did that well enough along with everyone else. So for me, that's what matters.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna advocate when you come back with your certificates and you're ready to launch your coaching academy and so on and so forth. I'll definitely advocate for you, because the way that you are speaking, I could already tell that you're looking to address more than just the on the field performance. You know, I would like, you know, to get something on record. If you could, what would you say to aspiring athletes now? Not necessarily just footballers, but in this climate, you know, you're not getting access to the fields and to the training facilities, the not getting access to the teams unless it's national performance. What would you say to them in terms of the headspace that they should, well, not should, but would be helpful in maintaining right now?
Well, yeah, it's no secret that it'll be tough. It'll be a really difficult challenge. But one thing the pandemic has taught us is to innovate a bit. Gotta be think a little bit outside the box. Be a little ingenious in the things that you do. What I did when we were locked down in India for like 5 months after, there was no flights, nothing. So there was no way you could go home. Borders were completely closed, no flights, nothing. I did a sort of self-assessment, I looked back at my videos and see where I was going wrong, and I was going a little better than in other aspects of my game, and tried to refine that. Physically, I had some little biomechanical adjustments to make. So, you have time sort of now to work on yourself without, too much distraction from others. You'll be surprised how many things you could do with just body weight exercises, So you got to innovate in this time. And it's been way too long that, outdoor activity has been shut down, and that's the truth. But it's space and time for you to innovate a bit, to find yourself a little more, again, without the distraction of others. The pandemic has isolated some people in somewhere, and that's not healthy, of course. But it does give us time to be very introspective and also to plan and sometimes to pivot. And you might have to go in another direction or find another method to do what you were trying to achieve in the first place. That's what I've attempted to do. That has kind of opened up my avenue towards the coaching thing as well. And that's I think probably the best advice I could give at the moment.
Wow. 5 months in India, and the funny thing is, and Iran would know this about me. I don't care how bad it gets. Right? I look for something to come out with. I'm not undermining how difficult situations can be. I'm not undermining or not diminishing like how hard it is to deal with a situation or circumstance or conditions. But I'm adamant that you could find something in any situation to hold on to or to come out of it with, so that the experience isn't wasted on you.
Absolutely. I was in Goa, fortunately. It wasn't like one of those big cities and those million people per square kilometer kind of setups. I live fortunately 6 minutes walk from the beach, And even during lockdown, I used to go to the beach almost every single day. I ended up adopting a family of dogs on the beach, and I gave them names and everything, and I used to go down every day and feed them, and so it was those kind of things that kind of took care of me mentally as well, to connect with, even it was not necessarily another human being, but other living being. There would be a couple of people, because humans are creatures of habit. There would be a couple of people who would be doing more or less the same thing every day, and I would see them every single day. We mightn't even exchange words or anything, but we recognize each other's presence and almost recognize, and don't want to get all kind of spooky, but our spirits will almost kind of touch, and this is what we're doing to take care of ourselves mentally, almost. So yeah, that really kept me in a decent space, because more than the 5 months plus just being locked down over there, the only reason you're in India is to play football, and then there's no football, and then there's no freedom. And on top of that, the uncertainty, because we never knew when this thing was going to stop, when flights were going to reopen, if the borders were going to open for us to return home, and the uncertainty was probably the most torturous part of it. But if you set smaller goals for yourself, so at that time I was trying to learn a bit of Arabic and that kind of thing, and you see that little progress, and then the time doesn't pass away. You're not going to waste any time per se, but you're achieving small milestones, and you're seeing yourself improve and grow, and that definitely helps in the downtime or in the isolated time, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned your adopted family of dogs because we have a recurring guest on the program, right? Aaron's neighbor's dog barks through every recording at some point in time or another, and almost on cue.
That was it just now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crap.
So big up Brownie, right? I don't know what the dog name is. I call it
Uno.
Brownie. Really?
Yes.
Right? You know what is your dog? Your neighbor dog? What arrangement
the
will they have?
neighbor's dog.
Right.
You know, on the other end of the spectrum, right? You have a situation where you're isolated. You're cut off from your family, your friends, your support system, sometimes your countries, your financial support, etc. But as an athlete, now we're seeing a lot of bubbles, around events and tournaments and that type of thing. That had to be a whole next kind of mental stress or social discomfort. What that can't be all peaches and cream.
No, not at all. That is a huge challenge. I think recently Gale, as in Chris Gale, he's preparing for the T20 World Cup, and he was meant to go back to the IPL, but he just skipped it and he went to Dubai to chill because he was almost like, they call it bubble fatigue now. So obviously it's a biosafe environment, so you're cut off from everybody outside. And yeah, that's tough, man. Whether you're super family oriented or not, I mean, we're humans at the end of the day, we're social creatures. And it does get very monotonous and tedious, seeing the same bunch of 15 odd players every single day. That is difficult to deal with. But on top of that, you're away from your family and all the rest of it. You're cut off from even fans, because that's part of the joy of the game. Interacting with the fans and having people fill the stadiums and that kind of thing in certain circumstances. It's coming back now, of course, but in certain circumstances, that's not even possible because of the biosecure environments. And it is a huge challenge to deal with. I mean, technology helps, but it doesn't replace, seeing, touching your family and whatever else, So it's all very new to us, but science have already shown that it's difficult. I believe Jason Holder, that's the big Bajan guy, cricketer as well. He lamented, the fatigue of the biosecure environment and just how mentally taxing it is to kind of be isolated and stuff. And that's a huge challenge. I mean, for me, we had that sort of in the Gold Cup, the recent Gold Cup. But it was semi-laxed because it's America and everything is everything. So you see less masks on people than more, for sure. So that was a little bit different. It was a little more liberal. But even with my travels all over the world, I'm not in bubbles. I wasn't in bubbles when I traveled, but I am away from my family for prolonged periods of time. And it is a challenge, and technology can only do so much. Yeah. But like I mentioned before, it kind of semi-suits my personality because I'm fairly reserved as well, so I'm not a big social butterfly. So I train, I'm around 20, 25 odd people, and by the end of that, my social cup is full, so I could go inside until the next day and I'm cool. But not everybody is sort of set up that way, and so that's a little more challenging for them to deal with. But despite that, it still is difficult, when you're yearning to see your family and your friends and you're away for 6, 7, 8 months consecutively. That is tough to deal with sometimes.
So, Aaron, you are DJ by night, accountant and other things by day. When you out there in the parties and so on and so forth, and you're feeding off the energy of the vibe, people enjoying what it is you're doing. I wonder if you could help portray something that running through my mind here. When you're playing in front of a closed stadium and I have to pump into the stadium the sounds, fans cheering, whistles, that type of thing. As an entertainer yourself, how would it feel to walk into a whole dance hall, speakers set up, lights flashing, and you literally playing for empty floor, an empty party, and still supposed to, bring the kind of vibe and tempo and, deliver your A game.
Throw it down, man. Come with your best stuff.
Yeah. You think you could do that?
I had to do it recently,
Oh, jeez.
and it was very tough because I can't say I did it as well for sporting events back in the days when I used to play university football. You feed off the vibes of the fans, you feed off the patrons, and for you to put out your best to 10,000 empty chairs or to an empty hall with just a camera in your face and you had to be smiling and enjoying it, it's not comparable whatsoever. And you would know from the live shows at work, having to press that sound effects button.
Yeah, you 3 or 4 people behind the cameras, one on the board, and you have to clap because there aren't people in there to signal that we really enjoyed that from you.
It's be tough.
So, and I'm loading that with this because I can't do anything without buffing somebody. But imagine.
Don't buff somebody now.
No, I want to know, imagine you do that. You put on that stellar effort to try and maintain a performance. And when you come off and you check your phone.
You don't check your phone.
You don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do yourself that.
Nah, don't do yourself that.
Some of those boys sometimes, yeah. Yeah.
So that's the thing you actually tell them. Don't put yourself through that.
Well, first, I like people to process the moment like in real life. What's the acronym?
IRL? Yeah.
Yeah. Like process the moment first now, and then okay, of course, everybody wants to connect with people. That's kind of the world we live in. But feel it first now. Feel it first. Feel the moment, let it sink in, actually feel what you feel before you start feeding off the energy, whether negative or positive, from somebody else. Assess what it actually means to you before you go and see how many likes and dislikes you got, because that could throw you off and that could kind of dilute what the moment really means for you and the team and all of that.
Yeah. So, that's stealing that though. That feel it first mentality. Yeah. I go in with that.
Yeah, of course. That playing in front of an empty stands, like you said, it's important. So important to feed off the energy of the crowd. I've played in versions of local football where there were good crowds, and versions of local football where they weren't. Almost anybody. And it's tough, man, to get yourself up for a game and there's nobody to see you perform after you train all week and you're prepared and nobody could be bothered to show up, That does put a damper on things. And my friend mentioned that once and compared, football in Central America to Trinidad. The level is not necessarily higher or lower either side, but you're accountable to the fans as well now because they come there paying the money, expecting a performance. So you have to hold yourself to that standard. So in a sense, you get more of an effort, but not necessarily a tremendously better performance. But you have to maintain a certain standard. You have to put in an effort. You can't just muck around like that happens in some local games and stuff. It doesn't really matter whether you perform badly or not. You're gonna hear it from the crowd and you're gonna feel that pressure now. And that keeps you sharp, that keeps you accountable, and that maintains a certain standard in the football as well. So, as I said before, there used to be good crowds in local football, and you would feel that buzz and that energy, and the quality as a result was better. Not to speak nothing of, eyes on the football, so then there will be corporate sponsors coming around, there will obviously be money around the football because eyes are there. And then there's that whole loop of money, football investment, quality gets better, etc. And the opposite is true, of course. So yeah, it's really important to have people around to watch you, and that helps maintain the standard of the game.
Because I want to throw in here, we in Trinidad, when we go to watch a game, we just look out for two things: beat and hard jam. So once you see a man run down a line and hit a man a spanner, you go and hear the whole crowd. Woo-hoo!
Yeah.
And that going and motivate that man. The next time you're running down the line, even if you have a good pass, to try to beat again. So sometimes the crowd pressure would make you do the thing to get the oohs and the ahs.
Right.
And other time.
Yeah, they will not necessarily promote good football per se.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the crowd pressure is good. But it also sometimes, as I said, it doesn't keep the players grounded.
Yeah. But nothing gets the crowd going like a goal. All right, a beat is a close second place, but a goal, come on, goal still is on top, no?
Yeah.
That's the ultimate objective.
And a good jam right here too.
Yeah, good jam.
The old blow.
Yeah.
Aaron, one of the things I want to do as we kind of lean into that area of it, there are a couple people who have different expressions of love for football, let me call it like that I wouldn't mind getting into our conversation, just as people who study the masters in business administration in football and people who coach and play and that type of thing. Just different levels of civilian and professional footballers, not necessarily management and ministerial positions. People who could help us try to find that thing that we lose in our grassroots football, and maybe not even football, I guess it's sports across the board, and see if we could find a way to revitalize that, because we will complain about what associations and foundations are doing, but I don't think as a populace we holding ourselves responsible for not supporting it, not giving it any blood to work with.
I could go on a little rant here.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah,
you know what? If Dove say yes, yes.
Well, before I rant, I must shout out a brethren of mine, Pabs, right? No matter what Pro League team playing in what stadium, that man used to go and support. Right? Yeah. So the same way how I will go once I have a game in Maniram, John, and support secondary school football, he go in Pro League football every game. And I must say that sometimes we are some of the most fake patriots when it comes to supporting our national team. We only want to go when we win it. I remember going a game in Couva. The secondary school game the week before had more people than the national team game.
Senior team?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Right? The Pro League games, most of them are empty.
Yeah.
But we want to complain why our local talent not on the team and why we started bringing a whole bunch of foreigners.
Yeah.
How many people knew about Market before? Excellent player. Support it now. Oh gosh, man. Watch the Pro League games. Go and watch our game.
Might I go back to the days I referred to earlier about, when there was bigger crowds in the local leagues and stuff. That was pre-2006 World Cup appearance. How many Pro League players were in that squad? Quite a few, almost double figures. And the Pro League and the local league is always the basis and the springboard to push players outside anyway. So if you have a good local league, then your players have a higher standard and they could get out of Trinidad and go into bigger leagues, and they can cope and they can stay there and they could continue to develop. But if you have a weak local league, it's difficult for them to get out, and if they do, it's hard for them to stay and maintain that level out there because they're not fully prepared, because they haven't come from a strong enough background, And the Pro League was able to show in the World Cup that it was able to match, Sweden and England, and that's players from the local league. We're talking about Otis Whitley, and Denzel Theobald, both who were local at the time. Yes, I'm talking about, and those are starting players under Leo Ben Hacker, legendary coach who's coached Ajax and Holland. He could see locally based players and put them in a World Cup game. That's the importance of the local league. And when it was strong, and when it is strong, the national team will be strong. That's just a necessary consequence, And if the professional league is weak, which it is at the moment, then the national team find it harder to cope. So, but the responsibility is with us all. Administrators, the players have to hold themselves to a higher standard. Obviously, the fans have to do their part, and we're all sort of treading this water within this aquarium of hypocrisy, when we start pointing fingers at other people and saying it's their fault and why they don't do that and why they don't do that. But what's your part? What's your role? Whether you be a fan, whether you be a player, whether you be a coach or administrator, are you playing your role as best as you can? And if we're most times honest, the answer is probably no, So we're all to blame, and it's gonna take all of us to get ourselves out of it, I didn't mention corporate sponsors because I thought that's a given.
Yeah.
But what can happen without money? Let's keep it real. And I'm just talking about money. I'm talking about investment, not just money. You throw money at anything and you can waste it. But if you invest properly, then you will get a return. Other than that, you're wasting money. So yeah, all those entities are responsible.
And you know what? One of those investments would be in some sports therapy. I got so mad. I got so mad to hear you, because the thing is not just Trinidad and Tobago. You played football, right? And to hear that there was only one team you could talk of where there was access, regular, uninhibited access to a therapist. Come on, and
that was in secondary school.
I was at QRC, yeah.
That is absurd. And then we're wondering why we have as it has been colloquially known as stag and japs, football culture and a boat ride athlete culture and we not equipping.
Yeah, they bring out the boat ride, please. We must send them.
I not listen no boat. Anyway, we're not equipping these young players to deal with stress or success. But we expect them to perform to a standard where when they fail, with all the training, with all the coaching, with all the prep, we penalizing them for it. And then we'll just replace them with another young fella who have talent until he do something to upset
who has talent and who's equally unprepared and destined to falter as well, because he's unprepared.
So
this conversation could go on and on and on, right? But unfortunately, we are getting perilously close to 7 p.m. here in Trinidad and Tobago. And this is the living room with Radanfah Abu Bakr, Ricardo Mitchell, and DJ Aaron 868.
I feel you do that for a soundbite,
Really?
I feel you do that for a soundbite. You could have asked Radanfah to say this is Radanfah Abu Bakr with Ricardo Mitchell and DJ Aaron 868 in the living room. You could have asked him to do that, You're gonna do it for yourself. And then I do it. You know how weird to go look if he doesn't do it now?
Do I have to do it? I feel like under some pressure,
Ah man, it's all good, bro. Now, but it's really been a pleasure having the first conversation with you. And I'm saying first because one, now that we get you here, right, and the expectation has been met and surpassed, you're gonna be behind it to do it again.
Oh boy, again, no pressure.
None.
No
pressure.
But it's been delightful. I mean, I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface, but I'm all for that.
Because so far in the living room, we have different people who manage to move in and live here. We have Brendan James, who's our economist and energy guy. We have JL Valdez, who's our psychologist. Who else living in the living room now?
Is it living room or is it bedroom? What kind of bedroom? I really want to be part of No.
You see, it has rooms upstairs.
It has rooms upstairs,
right. Okay. I like my space, man. I like the elbow room.
You could get that. You could get that.
Again that.
Right. So I open to the idea of having somebody we could go to have discussions that are sport oriented, right?
Yeah.
And again, the approach that you have is something that ties in very strongly to what we believe in, which is being better citizens, paying things forward, pouring into the youth, investing. Right? That is why we have these serious conversations, these casual conversations on these serious topics. This is why we for Mental Health Month, we're not just bringing people in to talk about, all right, what is mental health and what to look out for. We're bringing people in to talk about the mental health in the different arenas, right? Because Sunday gone was World Mental Health Day, right? And now we're talking about, last week we spoke about mental health and
therapy hesitancy,
right? Next week, God willing.
Big man go therapy.
Yeah. Now that what 2P and a partner for now, apparently.
Yeah.
Right. God willing, next week we're going to be talking about therapy and counseling when it comes to school kids and parents and teachers and that educational aspect of it. So what I'm saying is I'm really grateful that you take the time to come here and have a conversation with us, not just about what's going on in Trinidad and Tobago sports or what you're up to now, but a real conversation about, listen, being a professional athlete has challenges.
Yeah.
And we are still people performing a professional job. I'm telling you, you don't see people going on the road and trolling the dentist, right? And then going back by the dentist. But we will pong an athlete, we will pong a performer, and then celebrate when they get through.
Yeah. I always know who's going to do that. I tell all you who's going to do this. I usually say when I was children the week before. Before we close, that's not, as you mentioned, my entire full name. I of course have a very fancy last name. A direct descendant of that gentleman, fine gentleman he is, misunderstood gentleman as well. That puts a bigger target on my back as well,
But I wanted to ask that, but I was a little bit afraid.
Again, people say I'm sort of intimidating, but I really am not, and I'm very open and free to answer these types of questions because there's no hesitancy in me for an answer like that. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of my dad and who he is and what he's given to me and provided for me in terms of support towards my career and towards my family and the amazing example he has been to me and the beacon and pillar of strength he is to the community that he serves. So I have no qualms about being his son or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's a pride for me. I know who he is, and anybody who's interacted with him on a personal level would testify to what a generous man he is. And in colloquial terms, he's a cool fella, But there's that alternative narrative. But as I said, anybody who knows him and has interacted with him on a personal level could testify to that. So I have no problem being proud of who I am because I know who he is, and it's nothing but love for him, obviously. But that, as I said, does make me an easier target because I'm a public figure because I'm a footballer. I'm a public figure because of that fancy name, And that adds to the challenge of dealing with, as you just mentioned, attacks when you don't perform as you should, or you get targeted by trolls and that kind of thing. And if they conflate your dad with your profession, and it's because of him, it comes from all angles, But for me, it's just about being proud of who I am, knowing who I am and who my dad is, and being proud of that. And it really doesn't matter what anybody else thinks that is ignorant of that fact,
So guys, we want to thank you for tuning into the living room tonight. Up next is Mr. Desmond with the big band. So Ricardo, do the needful before we hand it over.
Well, this is yours truly, Ricardo Mitchell, the social sage on the local stage. Thanking you for joining us in the living room. Okay. Remember guys, the hourglass is opaque. We don't know how much time remains, so whatever you're doing, be good and stay safe.
And this is yours truly, DJ Aaron 868. I'm always great and I am never late, reminding you that love is the currency, so spend some today.
You're
We
it.
out.
Wait, no.
Oh,
We
sorry.
had to get a closing line from him.
Yeah.
No way. I supposed to match that? How am I matching that? If I pronounce my name properly, I think that should be enough. But yeah, this is Radanfah Abu Bakr, national team footballer. Thanks for having me in the living room this evening. I look forward to being back here again sometime, to share some of my experience and have another good, insightful chat. So take care till then.
Right. Mr. Desmond, up next, big band.